Today I want to tell you a story. Not just any story, but the story of a little boy. A child who never stood a chance. A child whose life was stolen not by a stranger in the dark, but by the very people who were supposed to protect him. I want to introduce you to the parents, Keisha Williams, who's 24, and Efron Allen Jr., who's 25. Now here's where it all began. In July of 2020, when this beautiful baby boy was only 10 months old, he suffered a near-drowning experience after he fell into a pool at a short-term rental. There was life-saving efforts to try to save this baby's life, but the child had no brain activity, could not blink his eyes or move his extremities. So it was recommended to the parents that he be removed from any life-saving measures because the child would forever be in a coma with no brain activity. The parents didn't want to do that, so ultimately, the parents were sent home with their infant on a ventilator with a stomach tube. Home health care would come 3 times a week. Now that went on for over 2 years until the parents began to reject the home health care. Despite the healthcare company's best efforts, the parents would either not be home or not answer the door. So the last time home health care dealt with the child was in October of 2022. Now understand, all of this was occurring at absolutely no cost to the parents. In fact, the mother was receiving benefits to stay home and take care of the baby. So let's fast forward to May 12th, 2023. There's a 911 call made to the city of Bartow from the Azalea apartments where they live, where the mother said the child's pulsometer is not working correctly. This is really not an emergency, the mother said, so you don't need red lights and sirens, but we'd like an ambulance to come over and check the baby. So they responded to the house in a normal routine fashion, and when they arrived, they saw this child hooked up to a ventilator. The ventilator was working appropriately, but there appeared to be no life in the child. This child had an extremely extended stomach, and it was green. This child was rotting in his bed. They rushed this baby to the hospital, where for over an hour, EMS, fire services, and medical personnel tried to save this baby's life. As they started taking off the diapers and the clothes, they noticed ulcers, large gaping wounds through the body down into the muscle. They noticed there was no rectum. There was just a big gaping hole where the intestines and the spinal column was visible. They notified the Bartow Police Department, who immediately said, "Hey, we need the sheriff's office to come check this out." So the homicide team responded. They noticed immediately the child smelt of decomposition. They went back to the house where the child laid lifeless, as it had for 2 years, and smelled decomposition in the room. The medical doctor at the emergency room said, "This child has not had the appropriate care for months." The medical examiner at the autopsy said the child had sepsis, bilateral pneumonia, stage 5 ulcers, obvious child neglect. So police talked to the parents to try and find out what happened. They said, well, they didn't want DCF to take their children, so they didn't call, but they had tried to get more home health care. But when police talked to the potential healthcare providers, they said they accepted them. When they made home visits and wanted to see the child, the parents would say, "Don't wake the child up today. This is just an introduction." And the next time they went, nobody answered the door. So obviously they were trying to create a facade, or to say, well, we asked for help. They let this baby rot and die in its bed. They were charged with aggravated manslaughter, among other charges. They were locked up in the county jail with a bond of $100,000. As of today, the case is still ongoing. This child was 3 years old and suffered a horrible tragedy. Police believe the parents just got tired of the baby. They just got tired of the intensive care this child needed. And as a result, the child laid there and suffered and suffered and suffered. To finally, there was no life left in the baby. The other children in the home appear to be in good health. Stories like this break us because they remind us how cruel the world can be, especially to those who can't fight back. But remembering this child, telling his story, that's how we make sure he's never forgotten. Maybe your child has special needs. Maybe the days feel impossibly long. Maybe the nights are sleepless. And maybe, just maybe, you've had moments where the weight feels too heavy to carry. Please, ask for help. And if you know someone who's struggling, be the one to check in. A conversation can change everything. Thanks for watching. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, take care, and God bless.